Yo, what's going on, guys? Loon here, and welcome to part 1 of my Retribution Paladin guide as of patch 6.0.3 Warlords of Draenor. Now keep in mind this is the first patch, and this is still launch, and things are subject to change whenever and always. So take this with a little grain of salt, and keep in mind there are other opinions and guides out there that may or may not have different variety of things that aren't what I'm doing. So just be sure to take a look around, and the whole point of this expansion is that there is variety and choice with your talents this time. So it'd be nice to see what you guys would think the difference would be. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's start up with the basics. This will be part 1, basics, glyphs, and talents. So right now I am fully geared at item level 620 with the primal combatants scaled armor. Pretty much, let's go ahead and look at our set bonus. 2 set, when you cast Avenging Wrath, the duration of all incoming crowd control effects on yourself is reduced by 50% for 15 seconds. Now this is extremely crazy for Ret right now, because the biggest problem in MOP was we always got CC'd when we popped cooldowns. Now what we can do is we're not afraid to pop cooldowns and get CC'd, because it already acts as if we're being DR'd. And we can continue to burst, which is extremely good. And on top of that, as if we even needed anything else, the 4 set makes us, when we spend holy power, we increase our damage and healing done by 3% per holy power spent for 8 seconds, up to a max of 3. It doesn't say that, but that's up to a max of 3 holy power spent. So you can get a total of 9% healing and damage increased for 8 seconds. Now let's take a look at our stat weightings. Currently I have a kind of a fun build going on. I'm testing out this new stat called Multi-Strike, which pretty much gives me a chance to do 2 extra... I have 2 chances to deliver 30% of what my original attack was. So say if I did a Templar's Verdict, pretty much if it multi-striked, I would have 2 chances to do an extra attack for 30% of that value. Meaning it has a lot of RNG and it has a lot of burst. So I'm doing a lot of testing into it, and hopefully it stays good. If not, that's fine. I mean, as of right now, Ret is great with every single stat as far as I'm concerned. So what I'm looking at, thinking maybe multi-strike, then go for a little bit of mastery, then haste, then crit. Is what I'm thinking. Versatility, I don't really see how you could get any more of that. I mean, there's a couple of pieces of gear that have versatility and some enchants, but I don't really go for it because it doesn't seem... I was told somewhere that it does get cut in half in PvP for some reason, but that's yet to be confirmed. So, don't quote me on it. I did enchant my gear to have multi-strike, neck, cloak, both rings. Oh, I'm actually missing a ring enchant. I better go do that. Good thing about having a garrison, huh? You have an enchanter study. I do have the Primal Combatant's Greatsword with the Mark of the Shattered Hand enchant, and it's pretty much required at this point because it's the only one people can afford generally. There's more expensive ones that do a little bit more things, but it's not popular enough for me to talk about it yet. So I'll put an update out as soon as it's more available into the area. So let's take a look at our talents. A little bit different than MOP. We still get Long Arms of the Law, which increases our judgment, increases our movement speed at 45% for 3 seconds. Standard stuff. We always have that. I can't think of any other reason why you wouldn't have it, other than just to not have it. Level 30 would get Fist of Justice. It's a longer stun, it's ranged, shorter cooldown. No reason not to get it, unless you maybe go for Blinding Light, but the things you're going to play with, the team comps you're playing with, might have a disorient that may DR with this, so it might not be worth it to go for it. So for now, we can just stick with Fist of Justice, at least for me, in my opinion. Next, I still go for Selfless Healer. Pretty much just Judgment to make my Flash of Light heal faster, stronger, and cheaper. Every time my Judgment stacks up to 3 times on other people. So if you're going 2v2 and you don't have a healer, you can pretty much be the off healer to keep you guys up. Now that we have more mana to spend more Flash of Lights on, this is actually extremely good for us. Now this is where it changes up a little bit. Usually I would go Unbreakable Spirit because we were getting trained a lot, and I would always have to pop Wall early and Bubble very early, so I'd always have to have it up quicker. But now I actually went for Clemency, which makes my hand abilities have 2 charges, meaning whenever I Hand of Freedom, I have 2 of them. Whenever I bop, I have 2 of them. Whenever I have sack, I have 2 of them, which is extremely good because if you're doing 3s, you can cleanse 2 people at the same time, and it will be essentially very good and very difficult for your opponents to CC your allies in 3s. Also, another side note, Hand of Sacrifice has its GCD removed, meaning global cooldown, meaning inside of a global, like say you cast a spell like this, you can still cast a sacrifice on someone else without wasting a global on that. And it just makes it so much easier and faster to dispel your friendly targets, and it's so great. Like, I am really happy with this talent now that they made it really good. So we go down to level 75 and you go to Holy Avenger, which pretty much makes your holy power generators deal 30% additional damage and healing, and generate 3 charges of holy power for the next 18 seconds. Pretty standard stuff, we'd always go for it. Now I can see sometimes we go for Sanctified Wrath, which is for longer burst and longevity, but for this build I'm working on, I am going for full on burst, so we're not going to go for Sanctified Wrath right now. It's going to be Holy Avenger. The next one's going to be Execution Sentence, again for the same reason, the burst, and it appears to do a lot of damage right now as well as healing, and it also can multi-strike. So since I'm going for the multi-strike build, I'm going to go for it. Now here is where the choice comes in that I talked about. Excuse me. This is one of the, I am very impressed with Blizzard's variety of talents that we're able to get from this. Every single one of them from this bracket I can see using in a certain way, and I actually have a choice. There's not just one and that cookie cutter and that's it. I can't pick anything else. Now I actually have choice. So for this guide, I went ahead and went with Seraphim, which pretty much makes all of your secondary stats increased by 1,000 for 15 seconds. Now this is extremely good for burst and also for defense, because more crit, more haste, and multi-strike, your heals can multi-strike, meaning if you Flash of Light yourself, you can potentially get bonus healing and it can also crit. And if it also crits, it can also multi-strike off that crit. So the value gets increased even more. Also, it has a 30-second cooldown. It has a lot of potential for you to have like little mini bursts on behind your huge burst. So say if you have, you have your 2 CDs of Holy Avenger and Wings on cooldown, you would have Seraphim up a lot more often, so you can use that, and it would make you a little bit more versatile in fights. And the only downside to Seraphim is that it does cost 5 holy power, and it does take an extremely long time to generate the holy power to actually use it, compared to just like I can't even compare this to Inquisition because we don't have that anymore. So that's the downside to having this also. but it does work with Holy Avenger. You just have to waste a couple globals and then be able to use it. Now I could see Final Verdict being very good as well, mainly because it does pure holy damage, and it does do bonus damage. It also increases damage and radius of your Divine Storm by 100%, meaning it hits harder, and it does stack with our Ret passive, which is the improved Divine Storm. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Holy Power consumers have a 25% chance to make your next Divine Storm free and deal 50% more damage. These two bonuses stack, and they do hit just as hard as a Final Verdict or a Templar's Verdict. And the big part about the holy damage is it's unmitigated damage, meaning if someone puts a bop on someone, that means you can't hit them with physical damage. With Final Verdict, you can go right through it because it does pure holy, which makes it, again, viable for choice. But for now, we're going to go ahead and skip that. And the weakest of the 3 empowered seals, it's a good idea, but I don't see it being viable at all. I mean, you can maybe make it work, but compared to the other two are just so much better. The heal from Insight 1% for every 2 seconds, it's not strong enough to do anything, and we're just going to pass it up until maybe it gets fixed, maybe looked at a little bit more. I don't know. We'll see what happens in the future. Let's go on to Glyphs. So, again, it's pretty the standard. You know, you usually pretty much mandatory have the Glyph of Templar's Verdict. 10% less damage every 6 seconds after dealing damage with Templar's Verdict or Exorcism. Keep you a little bit tough in combat, because Ret is notorious for being extremely squishy. So, it's a little different now, but it's very good to have. Now I go for Glyph of Burden and Guilt because my judgments will slow. And it's kind of hard to keep someone locked down nowadays because our judgment got nerfed. The range got nerfed by a little bit, so we kind of have to like get all the melee range we can get. And unless you're going against like melee cleaves, I would go for Glyph of Divine Protection, which makes it your wall do 20% of both trees instead of just 40 of magic, so it's good for melee cleaves. Now the other ones I can't really see me using, mainly because they're just very peculiar and they don't really, I've tested them out and they don't really do all too much. Like Blessed Life, it's like an extra holy power. I mean, it's not, and it only happens at 20 seconds. It's pretty much garbage. So I'd go for this, which is like pretty much the best thing Ret could have right now in terms of a glyph, which pretty much makes our freedom put a DR on CC, which pretty much says Hand of Freedom immediately reduces the remaining duration of all effects which cause loss of control of a character by 25%. Any additional loss of control effects applied within 4 seconds have a 25% reduced duration. Meaning, if you get stunned and you pop that freedom, and it's a 5-second stun, it gets cut down to a 3-second stun. That's huge. And it doesn't specify just any CC. It's every single CC you can think of: fears, roots, snares, stuns, disorients, blinds, anything, as long as you're able to pop it in that time. But you keep in mind, you do have only 4 seconds to have this kind of DR on you. But if you stack this with your 2-set, you're pretty much unstoppable. Like, you cannot be CC'd, if not for very long. They stun you once, it's like a 1-second stun, and they do it again, you're pretty much DR'd. You can't get stunned again. So it's like one of the best combos of a set piece and a glyph I have ever come across, and it's so awesome. So my thoughts so far for Ret is, I don't know what Blizzard did, but they did a fantastic job fixing this class. I complained a lot in MOP about it being extremely weak, having no viability in any sort of arenas or PvP, and they just turned it right around. Just like with this expansion, it is phenomenally awesome, and hopefully you guys that are watching my videos and looking at my guide, hopefully I can show you guys how to do it right, and you can get up there and be awesome. be an awesome Ret Paladin, because Ret Paladins haven't been around for a long time, and it's going to be nice to see a bunch of Ret Paladins running around in PvP. So this is part 1 of my Ret Paladin PvP guide. I don't know how many parts I'm going to have, but I am going to have a rotation, macros, and general tactics for Ret in arenas, and I'll get that done in a further time. But right now, this is it for this video, and until next time, guys, I'll see you then. You guys have a good one.